AITA for cutting ties with my friend Zoe after she turned into a bridezilla. I, 27F, have been friends with Zoe, 28F, for over 10 years. We've been through everything together: high school drama, breakups, new jobs, and countless late-night conversations. We've always had a pretty solid friendship, but over the last year, things have completely fallen apart, and now I'm left wondering if we were too harsh in cutting ties with her. A year ago, Zoe got engaged, and we were all genuinely thrilled for her. Her fiancé is a great guy, and we knew she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. At first, everything seemed pretty standard. She was excited, and we were all ready to help her with the wedding planning. She asked me, along with a few other close friends, to be bridesmaids, and of course, we all agreed without hesitation. However, things started to shift pretty quickly after that. At first, it was the usual wedding stress. She had strong opinions about the wedding colors, the theme, and the bridal party's outfits. Nothing unusual. I mean, it's her day, and she's allowed to have a vision. But then the demands started to pile up. She asked us to buy bridesmaid dresses that cost over $300 each. I know that's not insane in terms of wedding dress prices, but it was a bit of a stretch for many of us. Especially considering we still had to buy shoes, accessories, and on top of that, we were expected to contribute financially to both the bridal shower and the bachelorette party. Zoe made it clear that nothing was too much for her wedding, and if we weren't willing to spend the money, we weren't being supportive enough. I honestly started to feel a little uncomfortable, but I told myself it was just the pressure of wedding planning getting to her. Then came the bridal shower planning. Zoe expected us to rent out an extremely expensive venue, something that would cost each of us around $150 just to attend. It wasn't even a question. She wanted a luxury experience, and we were supposed to make it happen. The venue was beautiful, but it was out of the budget for most of us. When we tried to suggest a more affordable option, she refused, saying we didn't understand what it meant to truly celebrate her. She told us she would only accept a venue that looked like something from a Pinterest board. But it didn't stop there. Zoe then started sending daily messages in the group chat about the bridal shower details. She insisted that every part of it, from the flowers to the food to the games, had to be exactly how she imagined it, and there was no room for input. When one of the girls suggested a more budget-friendly alternative for the catering, Zoe snapped and said, "If you can't afford my wedding, maybe you shouldn't be in it at all." By the time the bachelorette party planning came around, things had gotten worse. Zoe wanted us to all fly to a super expensive resort for the weekend. We're talking hundreds of dollars for the trip, not including meals and activities. When we started discussing more budget-friendly options, she got furious. She told us we were being cheap and that we clearly didn't care about her. She even went so far as to say, "If you're not willing to make sacrifices for me, then maybe you shouldn't be in my wedding party at all." We were being made to choose between our friendship with her and our financial stability. And then came the final blow. Zoe sent us a 5-page email outlining the rules for the wedding weekend. I kid you not. There were rules about everything, from how we should behave during the ceremony, no crying, no laughing too loud, no looking bored, basically, to what we were allowed to wear during the pre-wedding events. Apparently, casual outfits were out of the question, even if we were just hanging out between things. But the worst part was when she told us that we had to have perfect Instagram photos. Like, perfect. She even included a list of specific poses she wanted us to do, and if any of us posted something that didn't meet her approval, we were dropped from the wedding. Yes, dropped. By this point, the stress was unbearable. We tried to have a conversation in a group chat about how we were feeling. We expressed that the costs were too high, the stress was too much, and we were worried about the negative impact it was having on our friendships. Zoe's response was cold and scathing. She accused us of being selfish, unsupportive, and trying to ruin her special day. She even said, "I'll remember this when I'm looking back at my wedding photos and thinking about who truly cared about me." It got to the point where several of us, including me, were overwhelmed. Some of the girls tried to talk to Zoe one-on-one, explaining that they simply couldn't afford the things she was demanding. But she didn't care. She told one of them that if they weren't willing to invest in her happiness, they weren't real friends. After much back and forth, we all decided to pull back. We agreed that we couldn't go on like this. A few of us dropped out of the wedding completely, and some of us even decided to cut ties with Zoe entirely. The whole thing felt like a weight had been lifted, but Zoe was, understandably, devastated. She sent us a message calling us fake friends, jealous, and dramatic. She told us that we should have sucked it up for the few months leading up to the wedding, because it was her day. Now, I'm sitting here second-guessing myself. I feel guilty because we've been friends for so long, but at the same time, it felt like she had no regard for anyone else's feelings, time, or money. Her demands were completely out of line. I don't know if we handled it the best way, but none of us could continue to be a part of something that was causing so much stress and drama. AITA for cutting ties with Zoe over her becoming a bridezilla? Update. Hey everyone, I just wanted to give you all an update on the situation, because it's been a few weeks, and things have been pretty intense. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented and shared their thoughts. I was really torn about whether we were too harsh in cutting ties with Zoe, but reading your responses helped me gain some clarity. After the fallout with Zoe, things were awkward, to say the least. For a few days, I felt a bit of guilt. I kept wondering if we could have handled it differently, or if we overreacted. But after some time and reflection, I'm now pretty confident we made the right decision. Zoe reached out to me personally, hoping to have a one-on-one conversation to clear the air. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was ready for that kind of confrontation, but I agreed to meet up in person. The conversation went exactly how I expected it to go. She apologized, sort of. She told me that wedding stress had gotten the best of her and that she was just really passionate about making everything perfect. But when I brought up the fact that she completely disregarded everyone's feelings, money, and mental well-being, she just kept deflecting and saying things like, "Well, I only get one shot at this, and I had to make it perfect for me." It was very "I'm sorry you feel that way," but with no real accountability for her actions. She didn't take any responsibility for how demanding and hurtful she'd been toward all of us. In fact, she said that her wedding was the most important thing in her life right now, and that we should have been willing to support her no matter what. She even implied that the people who truly loved her would have sacrificed more. It really stung hearing that, especially after we tried to communicate how we felt during the planning process. At that point, I realized that the real Zoe had been buried under all the wedding stress. The girl I had been friends with for over a decade was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about her own vision of perfection and who wasn't willing to acknowledge how much damage she caused. After the meeting, I went home feeling drained but relieved that I had the closure I needed. I haven't heard from Zoe since then, except for a few angry text messages about how we were all fake friends and jealous of her big day. I honestly didn't respond to any of them, because I realized that continuing to engage with her would only prolong the hurt. A few of the other bridesmaids have also decided to distance themselves from Zoe. One of them is still trying to salvage their friendship with her, but I think deep down, she knows that Zoe's behavior was a huge red flag. We've all agreed that the wedding was just the tipping point for us. There had been small issues in our friendship before, but the wedding planning was like the final straw. I'm sad that things turned out this way, but it's also been eye-opening. Sometimes people grow in ways you don't expect, and the friendships you thought were solid aren't always as strong as you thought. I'm just grateful to have my other friends who've been so supportive throughout all of this. We've all come to terms with the fact that some relationships just aren't worth the emotional toll they bring. So, to answer the question that everyone was asking, no, I don't regret cutting ties with Zoe. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right one for me and for the other bridesmaids. If Zoe ever changes and is willing to take accountability for her actions, I might be open to talking, but I'm not holding my breath. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice, and I appreciate all the support. AITA for cutting ties with my mom after she became a bridezilla before my wedding? I, 28F, have been struggling with my relationship with my mom, 59F, 4 years. We've always had a strained relationship. She's overbearing, critical, and sometimes just plain toxic. I've tried to work through it, and for the past 2 years, I've been trying to rebuild some sort of connection with her. It's been slow and painful, but I've been trying, and I thought maybe, just maybe, things were improving. Well, everything went to hell during the lead-up to my wedding. I got engaged a little over a year ago, and while I wasn't expecting my mom to be the perfect fairy tale mother, I was hoping she'd be supportive. I was wrong. At first, she seemed excited, but as the wedding day got closer, she started acting, well, crazy. She turned into what I can only describe as a bridezilla for me, her daughter. She took over the planning, constantly pushed me to make choices I didn't want, criticized my dress choices, and even started dictating who could be invited and who couldn't. She's still mad at my cousin for not inviting her to her wedding 15 years ago, so that became my problem somehow. I tried to set boundaries, but she completely ignored them. Things got worse when she started nitpicking about the guest list. She threw a fit because I didn't invite a family friend she's always been close with, even though I barely know the woman. Then came the wedding colors. I picked a soft pastel palette because that was what I liked, but she insisted it looked cheap and demanded I change it to something more elegant, basically what she wanted. Every time I told her I wasn't interested in her suggestions, she would sulk and say things like, "I'm just trying to help you not make a fool of yourself." But it wasn't just about the wedding. It was about control. She made passive-aggressive comments about how I should think about the bigger picture and how this day isn't just about you. It felt like she wanted to own the event. By this point, I was already feeling completely overwhelmed, and the last straw was when she made a scene during my bridal shower. I had invited a small, intimate group of friends and family, but she invited her entire friend group, many of whom I had never met. When I asked her why she didn't consult me about the guest list, she exploded. I don't even remember the full conversation because I was so stunned, but it involved her calling me selfish for not sharing the day with people who care about you, which felt completely manipulative. I'm not exaggerating when I say she made me feel like I was losing my mind. It was all her way or nothing, and she kept telling me I was being a bridezilla, which was honestly laughable because I was just trying to have a small, peaceful wedding. Every time I pushed back, she'd guilt-trip me or threaten not to come at all. At one point, she even said, "I'm doing all this because I love you," which made me feel so small because love shouldn't feel like a power struggle. Finally, after another emotional meltdown where she tried to tell me who I could and couldn't invite to the wedding, I snapped. I told her that I couldn't do this anymore and that if she couldn't respect my wishes, I needed to cut ties. I told her I was done. She didn't take it well, to say the least. She called me dramatic, accused me of ruining her last chance at being a mother of the bride, and even tried to guilt me into thinking I was betraying her. I blocked her on everything. It's been over a month since I made that decision, and honestly, I feel a sense of relief, but also a lot of guilt. I know that I should have been more patient, and maybe I could have handled it differently, but at this point, I just couldn't handle the constant manipulation and control anymore. So, AITA? I feel like I might have gone too far by cutting her out, but I also feel like my mental health was on the line. I'm getting married in a couple of weeks, and I don't want her there anymore. Help me out, am I the asshole here? Update 1. Wow, thank you all for the outpouring of support. I honestly didn't expect so many people to validate my feelings, but I'm so grateful for the advice and insight from those who've been through similar situations. I'm going to try to address a few common themes from your comments and provide an update on what's been going on. First, the guilt. I'm not going to lie, despite the overwhelming support, the guilt still lingers. A lot of you mentioned that cutting ties with a toxic parent is sometimes necessary for self-preservation, and that really resonated with me. I've always been the one trying to fix things, trying to heal the relationship, so walking away felt like a huge failure on my part. But hearing from so many of you who've done the same and found peace has helped me realize I'm not the only one going through this. A few things I've learned. 1. Boundaries are essential. A lot of you pointed out how my mom's behavior was manipulative and controlling, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on that. I used to think that maybe I was being too hard on her or that I should have tried harder, but now I realize that my boundaries were never respected. That's not something anyone should have to tolerate, especially not from a parent. 2. I'm not the bad guy. I've been told by several family members, who didn't want to get involved at first, that I should have tried harder to communicate with her before making such a drastic decision. But after thinking about it, I realized I did communicate. I set boundaries, I asked for space, and I gave her multiple chances to change. It wasn't a sudden decision. I just reached the point where I couldn't sacrifice my mental health anymore. Now, for the update on my mom. So, after I blocked her, she started sending me emails and text messages. Some of them were sad, some were guilt trips, and some were just plain rude. She even had a mutual friend of ours reach out, telling me that I was overreacting and ruining her dream of being a mother of the bride. That one actually made me laugh, because she wasn't respecting my dream of having a peaceful wedding, but whatever. I've decided to not respond to any of it. The constant stream of manipulation is exhausting, and I'm choosing to focus on my wedding and my happiness. It feels good to stand firm, even though it's still hard. About the wedding. I'm getting married in 2 weeks. I'm excited but also a little nervous, mostly because I know my mom is going to cause some drama. My fiancé and I decided we're not inviting her, and while it's painful to some family members, we're standing by our decision. I'm having the wedding of my dreams, small, intimate, and with people who actually respect me and my choices. I'll be updating after the wedding to let you know how everything went, but I just wanted to say thank you again for the kindness and understanding. You guys have truly helped me feel less alone in this. Thanks again, and I'll post more soon. Final update.